Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you for joining another episode of Tjene Talks. Today we have Aaron Graben from Titan York joining us. He's going to talk about the corporate real estate industry, the markets, what's been happening and what we've been seeing, especially over the past year and a half. Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about Titan York and who you are.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. So my name is Aaron Graben. I'm the broker of record of Titan York Realty Corporation. So our main focus is tenant representation in terms of office leasing and retail. We've been around since 2003, and we're really strong across the GTA. We've got offices in Vancouver and partnerships in Montreal, and we represent right across North America. But we're in a really interesting time, and we're feeling it, and we're the front line on looking at all of the numbers that are coming out and the data and how to interpret it, and then we're the people on the ground like experiencing it as we tour clients or give clients advice. So yeah, we at the beginning of this we weren't sure how relevant a commercial real estate agent is in office space when no one was using it. Turns out we're extremely relevant because we're the ones sort of trying to figure it all out.
So I want to talk about, obviously what everybody's worried about and concerned about. Numbers, you're going to talk about some of those too. Vacancy. What are rental rates going to look like? Are they dropping? Are they holding fast? We're seeing in the market trend that everyone wants to, talk about working from home or working remote, and whatever that means, whether it's hybrid or whether it's completely remote, different companies take different stances. There's business continuity plans that are coming up. Reducing energy expenditure, health and well-being, the employee experience being an important part of it, and what really the office is supposed to be doing and providing value. But why don't you start off talking just about the numbers, vacancy rates, rental rates, numbers. What does that all mean? How does it look?
I think that's a great place to start because it gives everyone a perspective on where it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. So this is Altus Insight. Altus Group, and and you're seeing a whole bunch of numbers. So what I'll do is I'll just make this sort of a little bit bigger, and I'm going to take your attention to one number. So we're going to start with downtown Toronto. So it's this row here, and right now today we're at 9.9% vacancy in the downtown Toronto. And what makes up the downtown Toronto? Well, downtown Toronto is the downtown core, the Brick and Beam downtown west, the Dufferin and King, the downtown east, the downtown south, and all pretty much up to Dundas. So it's effectively 79 million square feet of the entire market of Greater Toronto of 192 million. So you can see that the entire market's 10.2, 9.9 is here, and this is an incredibly high number to be from the start of COVID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this number in context of where we were in March of last year to now, and I'll give reference to it. So this is the rolling 5-quarter, and what I'll do is let's take the downtown market again. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So this right here is the vacancy rate in March 2020.
Wow, 2.8%.
We were at 2.8%, which is incredibly low, right?
Effectively zero, yeah.
Effectively zero. Like if you asked me, hey Aaron, go find me space in the market, I would show you 2 spaces, and then you would yell at me and you would say, hey Aaron, show me more space. I'm like, I can't. And then, so one of our biggest challenges throughout the last number of years was, communicating to our clients that there was no choice. Now there's tons of choice. So, but let's look at another number which is really interesting. Is this one here? It's 224,578. That's how much sublease space was available in the entire market. To give you context, in March last year, the entire market was 76 million square feet in downtown. So out of 76 million, there was only 224,000. So now there's 1,451,000 square feet. So it really went up. So and I'll give you context to the 9.9. So the 9.9 is made up of both the sublease and the available space, okay? And between those numbers, and I'm just going to focus on the sublease right now, what we saw was that out of the 149 million square feet of which the downtown makes up 40% of that, of the entire GTA, 70% of all sublets were in downtown. I know I'm throwing in a lot of numbers, but
Okay.
in terms of the context of the city, most of the subleases happen downtown.
Right.
And to get to that 1.4, again, 1.4 million of 79 million square feet isn't a big number. It's not massive. But what's involved in that number is that it's made up of a lot of small tenants. So that 1.4 million is a lot of 2,500s, 3,000s, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, not hundreds of thousands of square feet for institutional tenants. So effectively, the banks and law firms and larger companies, for the most part, have not put their space up for sublease. The number the number may be low from the context of it's low to 79 million square feet, but it's made up of a lot of small tenants. So that sector of that tech sector, which you are in, we could tour all day and night. Now, the other thing that's really affected the market is that, and I'll show you here again, in March of last year, there was 76 million square feet of space on the market. Since that time, 3 million square feet has come on.
Yeah.
So that's new construction. So let's talk about the new construction. So far we've had this massive increase in sublease space. Not such, and let's talk about direct space too. So the direct space went really from 1.3 to 4 million. But of that 4 million, a lot of it came from new construction. Okay. So if you said to me, Aaron, if I'm a landlord, from the landlord's perspective, they don't have a lot of direct vacancy. It's mostly sublet and new space that's come on the market. So the effects of COVID did not heavily impact sitting tenants from the perspective of giving back space to the landlord directly. And don't forget that leases expire, they're inelastic, like they're 3 years, 5 years. You can't just hand back space. So from the direct perspective, going from 1.3 to 4, there wasn't a lot of handback of direct space. It's really new construction. So
the effective vacancy rate isn't as stark as it looks, from 2.8 to 9.9. Obviously, we've added square footage, and so we have to account for that with new construction. But obviously, people aren't allowed to occupy new space because of restrictions.
That's right. So that's and so let me go back to that. Here we go. So I'm going to go to downtown Toronto and click on this. So this is where we're back to again. Downtown Toronto, 9.9%. You can see the different vacancies that make it up. This 27% is a lot of the new space that's come on the market. And you can see the construction. So 8.4 million square feet. Irrespective of COVID, there was 8.4 million square feet being in construction coming on the market, and it's coming in over the next 24 months. So 80% of it is leased, 20% is vacant. And here will be the ultimate impact without any new space coming on the market, without any new direct vacancies that are existing coming on the market, without any new sublets, the downtown Toronto market could go to 18.5%. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to 18.5%. There's absorption. This is happening over time. But that's like, if it all came on the market today, that's what it would look like. So the downtown market has challenges. But what I'd like to do is talk about the downtown market in the context of the suburban markets as well.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go back to my little thing here, rolling back quarter. So, and I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, but let's look at our downtown Toronto again. So right now we went from 2.8 to 9.9%. Okay. Look at Toronto East, 7.5 to 9.3. Midtown went up, but there wasn't a lot of room to go. Like, it was easy to get there very quickly. In terms of the number of buildings and square footage, like it went from 49, it went from 306 to 825. Like, it did most of its sublease, but it didn't have the big one. What's amazing is this, that the Toronto West, like Mississauga, the whole Mississauga, Oakville, Brampton, it didn't really move.
I mean, it's probably even harder to get space now.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of reasons for that. So one was that if you go back to Toronto, Toronto is a commuter-dependent office node. That you have to get into on the bus or on the subway or on the GO train to get there. There's less. People don't want to do that during COVID, and so the suburban markets you could drive to. You could drive to your office, go into your office, get back in your car again. And it's cheaper to hold suburban space than it is to hold downtown space. And the makeup of the downtown that really went for sublease space were the tech companies that really were more agile to put their space up for sublease. Whereas they're more traditional office tenants in the suburban markets, where office space was a bit more needed. So you can see how it was skewed. And I think what you're going to see is, and you brought it up before, you talked about parking. I think you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some sort of incentive, right, for people to want to go into the office downtown these days, because I'm comfortable at home. I can jump on meetings quickly. I save time. And if I have to take public transportation, I mean, that's, I'm exposing myself to people I don't know or the public.
Yeah, so I think that, again, we're talking post-COVID.
Right.
And I think that's the jump we have to get to, because whatever's in COVID is frozen. It has been frozen since March.
And like, what have rates done since then? Have they dropped? Have they held fast?
So the rates are cool. So listen, if I knew it all, I'd be living on an island called Aaron. so I'm going to give you my what I feel is happening in the market. So I'm getting a lot of calls from landlords. So to be clear, Titan York is a tenant rep brokerage. So we don't represent landlords. We only represent the tenant in the renewal and relocation of their office space. So we avoid a conflict of interest. We're not a landlord broker, which makes us very powerful for the landlords to talk to, because we have no vested interest in gaining their business. Right. So I get a call like every second day from a landlord asking me, what do I think is going to happen in the marketplace? And it depends on where you are. So if you're in the downtown west, you can almost, and I can show you on the, let's go to downtown Toronto. Let me go back here for a second. So in the downtown west, the brick and beam market that had like 1% vacancy. Yeah. Right. When we say downtown west, we're talking like west of University to Dufferin. So here it is.
Yeah, that like kind of tech startup.
Startup
vibe, right?
Right, downtown west. I'm just going to click on it here, and it can show you. So the downtown west has an 8.4%, but the brick and the brick and beam is sort of in that class B, class C area, and that brick and beam is at like 16.2, 14.5%, just in that specific node. So if you wanted to be in that cool King Street downtown west, you got a lot of choices. So the landlords there are like, okay, well, what do we do? In the it's like sitting at the blackjack table. What does the book tell you to do if the dealer is showing a 6?
Right.
The book says drop your rate for a short-term period, or do short-term deals. So 2 years, 3 years, and to keep tenants and to get tenants. And there's a real and pay for your net rent. So here's the freakonomics of real estate. I value my building based on the net income. So if I'm getting, let's say it's $1,000, okay, a year from a client for for space, and my cap rate value, call it, is 5%. That $1,000 equates to almost $24,000 of value. So I've gone to the bank, I've said, look, I have $24,000 of value because I'm getting $1,000 a month. And the bank says, okay, that's great. So we're going to lend you the money. And then you come back for refinancing and you're only getting $500 a month. Well, now you're only worth $12,000, and all of a sudden what you're paying on your mortgage has come due and you've got a problem. You've devalued your building, you can't pay your mortgage. So landlords can, even with vacant space at budgeted at a certain net rent value, means that I can maintain my building value. If I drop that building value, like if I drop my net income that I'm getting for that space, I drop the building value, I have a harder time financing or valuing the property. Now, let's take ourselves into the core. The core is made up of institutional tenants, and the core is the big tower buildings. So the core is made up of larger institutional tenants, banks, law firms, insurance companies, with large institutional landlords, Cadillac, Oxford, Brookfield, and right now, at this point in time, the banks haven't given back space. They're giving back some space, but they're not giving it back in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of square feet. So the institutional landlords are maintaining their values for right now, and there's no space. On a direct basis, the institutional landlords don't have any space because it's mostly in the sublease range. So it's a very weird conversation. It's like, I'm a tenant, I want to renew. The landlord's position right now is my building is full. And the tenant's position is, what are you talking about? There's sublease space here. And the landlord's like, it's not direct space.
And you know, the REITs and the funds that own the properties are definitely not going to want their values lowered either. So they don't want landlords reducing rental rates because that affects directly, you know, the shareholders of these funds or these REITs. And, you know, it's kind of all propped up together, but eventually something's going to have to break, right? I mean, people really aren't paying rent at the end of the day. So,
well, this is
what's
it.
to make of it?
Yeah, like, right. So on the office side, everyone, for the most part, they're paying rent. I think that was the other side of it too, is that, you know, if you, on the office side of it, if you weren't dependent on your office space to make money, like the banks are not dependent on their office space to make money for the most part, they're still making the same amount of money. And it becomes this, it depends on of course, it's corporation to corporation, but for many corporations, the conversation is, hey, I'm, you know, okay, we're through COVID, we've done a year of COVID, our revenues haven't gone down. You know, we're still paying for space, but it's not like our revenues are down, we can't pay for space, we're just paying for space we're not using.
Correct.
Then there are companies that are absolutely, you know, dependent on it, and they're like, well, we're not making any money. So if you were running, like, I have a client whose sole business is running meetings.
Okay.
Well, you know, you can't pay rent, right? But the government's so we can now talk about and in the suburban markets, there's space available, as there's always been, in its own way. Like, there's not you know, we've been doing deals, and, you know, in the midtown markets, I did a deal for $5 net on Bloor, but I did another deal at Yonge and Eglinton, at Shepherd and Young, and it was, you know, pretty much asking with a lot of free rent. So it depends on what you're doing.
I see. Well, I mean, are you seeing, so obviously the small tech firms have got hit the hardest, right? They just obviously vacated and either not renewed or not looking for space. And certainly, you know, are you seeing are you doing a lot of tours now? Or has stuff picked up in anticipation of September, or what's that indicator looking like for you? And how are people even gauging when to go back or when to start to get new leases again?
It's very timely in that the conversation is in the last 2 weeks, it's that we've seen activity. Now, activity doesn't mean there's offers. It means that there's just a lot more tours and stuff going on. I think everyone's got a general consensus that if it's not September 1st or 6th, so after Labor Day, it's October. But even calling it October is like, well, it's the end of the year. So it's almost like January 2022 is sort of like farthest out date, and maybe we're going to be in before that. I think there's a level of the pendulum of working from home is the conversation we should be having.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we've seen is that when everybody started working from home, there was a lot of high productivity, but we've seen productivity drop over time. We personally, Titan York is having a very difficult time training agents, bringing them up, and focusing them in the right directions from home. It's not working.
I mean, I would say existing work can continue as it is, without too much disturbance, especially in the tech industry where you're just sitting in front of a computer all day anyway. But for new hires, I would say that it's very difficult to, build up any sort of team camaraderie. You have no idea who you're working with, and you may not ever get on a meeting with them. And that must be hard, switching jobs and getting it, as you say, training.
I mean, you can listen. If you were a new lawyer coming on board, you're not getting the mentorship. If you're starting off in the industry of finance, and that fun of being downtown and part of a group and going for drinks, and again, like even Titan York with its agents builds this great culture. Like we travel, we put everyone on a plane and travel, go somewhere for a night, and for one night, and then come back in the next day. And then the control. So that went to that conversation where let's be very clear. The decision to work from the office after COVID is not the employee's decision. It may be the employee's influence, but it's the employer's decision on the employee working from home or not. And the employer, for a number of reasons, might say it works. Like one, I don't want to pay for office space. I'll pay less you work from home. Fine. Or the employer is going to say, look, I need control. I want to build a company. Technology is all about coming together. And even, look, and I keep bringing it back to our knowledge. We're building actually an energy company in real estate too. It's another division of Titan York. Cool. But even in our common stuff, like to be able to talk to each other and communicate and work through problems, you have to sort of be in the same room sometimes. So we think that to cut it down, we see 15 to 25% of the workforce will work from home. And that means that, but tenants that want to maintain social distancing in their office, the current size of their office expanding for social distancing, like in its current space, means that they don't need more space, and 15 to 25% can still work from home. So many people are like, yeah, we're keeping our space, doing more social distancing. It doesn't mean we're shrinking our space. We're actually making more of it. So there's that level too. So we don't see after COVID that this is going to level off. Like there will be people dropping square footage. It's going to happen, but it doesn't mean the entire office market is going to crumble. That there will be definitely those that are cutting back, but it's going to be a balanced approach.
I think, the stats are that over 50% of people want the option to have flexible workspace, whether it's home or not. And under 20%, under 10% really want to work from home permanently. People want to still be in the office. And I think that speaks to the fact that the office does have absolute value in terms of, when you have meetings and camaraderie and going for drinks and whatever and training. but it's definitely not 100% 9 to 5. Although employers do have to decide for themselves what standards they want to keep. And we've been asked by many of our clients, what are your other clients doing? And at this point, no employer really knows what the right balance is. Everybody's asking each other what they're doing, and there's no standard out there. All we know is that we have to kind of be agile. And I think that you're right. Even though there's current space, it's not like it's going to shrink down by a huge margin. It's just going to be reconfigured to allow for this kind of modular slash, not everybody's coming in at the same time kind of flow. People are going to come in whenever. Yeah.
And again, a tech firm that's 5,000 that shrinks to 3,500 and gets rid of 1,500 square feet, small. Mm-hmm. Those aren't large market impacts. It really is going to be the institutional tenants that will really change what's happening on the market in terms of that people are going to follow the institutions. I think you're going to see banks making decisions and using it as a way to. I think you're right. They'll be using it as a way to gain employment. Like, come work for us. You can work from home for part of the time. What we are going to see is a really interesting impact, and we're calling for it. And people think we're crazy. Gyms are going to do fantastic.
Yeah.
And the reason is that if 15 to 25% of the workforce is working from home, they're eating, they're working, they're dealing with their families, they're dealing with their personal expenses, there's no leave. When it comes to working out, they're going to want to leave their house. So we see suburban gyms and even deep urban gyms in dense areas. I mean,
interesting.
And we're also seeing some weird stuff. We all expected that the condo market would just crash because, like 6 months ago, we talked about this. Like, oh, nobody's downtown. No one wants to be in their condos. Everybody wants to leave the city. And, no, the condo market is on fire now because
housing is absolutely bonkers. Yeah. That speaks to your point about downtown is not dead, right? The core still has its luster. I mean, people still want to be there. There's energy. There's a reason to come downtown. It's just going to look a little different than what it used to be.
I think there will be. I think right now it's dead, and it will be. And I can talk about, and if you want to, I'm happy to also talk about why values in southwestern Ontario and Ontario are skyrocketing.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, let's talk about Muskoka, Collingwood. I mean, the absolute lunacy that's going on over there.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to pull up Google Maps. Give me a second here. I'm going to put the world in a different perspective. Hold on.
I mean, to your point about large companies, we've already seen Shopify and Amazon take up more space during COVID. They signed large deals, 10+ year leases with certain landlords just to occupy 10,000 plus, 100,000 plus square footage.
Yeah.
Downtown. So
Shopify is not going anywhere. And like they thought they'd give back all their space, and they have.
I mean, while you're pulling it up, I mean, do you think that, I mean, there's obviously a large push for a lot of people to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna move ourselves out to Collingwood, whatever, and live and work out in, far from the core. Do you think that that's a temporary thing? People are going to come flooding back after, or how long do you think that's going to last for until people realize that they can't just maintain life, on a farm forever?
Yeah, and I think that you've danced around one of the topics, and that's how long to live on a farm. The comment is, how close are you to services? So let me show you. So this is Toronto. Let's go to New York. Okay, so I'm in New York, and I want to leave New York. Where can I go? Well, you can go anywhere here, right? Like, you can leave New York. So let's talk about Toronto and what the effects of COVID have had on a closed border and relocation. So if you are anywhere around Toronto, so let's just take this area here. So Vaughan, Brampton, Mississauga, Markham, go to Oshawa, you go all the way out to Oakville, Burlington. That's kind of like that really area. Okay, I want to leave. Now, there's 6 million people in this circle that I'm doing right here. This is 6 million people. And let's take, now you think you live in the largest country in the world. You don't. You live on an island. And let me show you your island. To the west of you, to the east of you is Lake Ontario. To the south of you is Lake Erie. To the west of you is Lake Huron.
When you put it that way, yeah.
Okay? So here it is, and here's your border. The Niagara border is right here. You can't cross this line. You can't cross this line. That's it. So now you want to leave Toronto. Where are you going to go in COVID? Well, again, it goes to, am I going back to the office ever? So if I'm going back to the office, how many days a week? Am I going to go back 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 1 day a week? So that's a travel distance of maybe about 2.5 hours. Okay, so let's do our 2.5 hour travel distance. So here we are in Toronto, and we can go here, we can go to London, right? Can't go down to Windsor, can't go to Sarnia, that's too far away. Okay, so now we're gonna go, somewhere around here, Collingwood. You go up to Collingwood. You're not gonna go any in these areas because there's no real services up here. Walkerton, but like your distances are getting a little bit farther. So okay, fine, so let's go here. Collingwood, Barrie, Belleville, probably the farthest you're going to go for a 2.5 hour distance. That's it. You're not going to go anywhere else. Okay, you want to go somewhere else? Fine. You'll probably go all the way up to Ottawa, but unless you're going to cross the next border, which is Quebec, that's almost a hard border. So my sister moved to Barrie, and we were talking with her and her friends, and a lot of her friends left Toronto for Barrie, and they said, don't leave your doctor in Toronto. You can't get one in Barrie.
Good point.
Okay, so now let me give you another thought. So there's 6 million people. Let's say 10% of the Toronto GTA population leaves. So that's 600,000 people. So 600,000 people drop in all around here. So let's say 10% of that 600,000 people drop into Collingwood. Let me show you Collingwood. That's Collingwood. If you put 60,000 people into that area where you can see it, again, okay, yeah, Aaron, well, we go to Thornbury. Well, there's small towns. Like, you can only stuff so many people. So there's housing issues in Collingwood right now. There's housing issues everywhere. So anyone leaving the city has put pressure on. There's not a lot of places to go. So there's one of the reasons why and nobody's talking about it from this perspective. There's nowhere really to go to be too far from your central services. Here in the U.S., you've got services anywhere leaving New York.
And I mean, there's certainly not a high-speed rail network like the Amtrak to take you around tri-state, right? We don't even have that for Collingwood to Toronto. So even if you were to go, you're just going to be stuck on the 400. Bottlenecked for how long, right?
Collingwood's great because there's different roads to get to it, but you're right. It's 400, it's airport road, whatever it is, right? But again, like going to Barrie, like you know what the traffic's like when there is traffic. So you're right. Like there's this is a really nice place to live, Canada, and specifically Ontario and Southwestern Ontario. So there's definitely international demand to be here, and it has price pressures. And it's not just international causing the price pressures. It's also people making really good use of those low interest rates in order to gain housing in and around the GTA. So you can see it's not just a bubble from my perspective. I mean, it is a little bit of there's a bubble in there, but I think there's a physical limitation to value, and that goes back to office space.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the suburban market, like, do I want to be in the suburbs so I can also get my people in Collingwood who don't have to drive all the way downtown? They can drive into Vaughan, and drive, or does Barrie have a boom in office space, or again Milton and Hamilton.
I mean, I think we're going to see a very close spreading out of offices and people, but not a far-fetched one. If anything, it is temporary. Because the office space is coming back, and for whatever in whatever fashion, downtown still has its lure. I think that there's going to be those small tech businesses and firms that have left West Toronto are probably going to those suburban markets, and that's why vacancies haven't really changed. And if there can be kind of urbanization, to a certain extent of some of these smaller firms and companies existing outside of the core, that's probably going to happen to a certain extent as well, to kind of spread out the kind of crowd of Toronto. But the office, if you will, has its definite value in the core specifically, and then outside the core. So what we're probably going to see, maybe even some satellite locations where it's, maybe you go into a satellite location that's kind of in the fringe and not in the core on days that you need to meet or work with a certain team, and then go into the core for sales meetings or whatever they may be, and then work from home the rest of the time.
I'm happy to point one of those out right now. I mean, look, and let's go back to the map here, and I'll do it this way. So this is Toronto, right? And this area right here is going to see an incredible amount of expansion, and it's going to evolve.
Especially because of the 400 too, right?
Well, so right at this spot right here, at 407 is like, and really Smart Centers has this incredible control of it. And actually maybe I'll go back to the satellite so you can see it. So this is 407. This is the end of the subway. The subway ends here. You're on the 407. You've got the 400. You have, and you are literally sitting at the north of the city. Here's downtown. So to get downtown is very hard from here. You got to go you either got to go down the 427, come all the way around, come back, go over the 404, drive.
It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. And that had to do with the Allen. Like, I don't know if you know this, but originally the Allen was supposed to run all the way downtown. It was called the Spadina Expressway. They changed the name.
Oh, didn't know that.
But and that was really the end of it. So this area is just poised. You can already see as you're driving on the 400 these massive condos. You're in one, and there's like 60-story condos there now, right?
Yeah.
And you can see them all right here. And this whole area is going to be a city center like you've never seen. It's just going to be incredible. Again, there's not a lot of vacancy. There's very little vacancy. So the other one, of course, is 400. It's 404 and 7. So that's just. I'll go back to my map here. So 404 and 7 is really doing phenomenal, like right here. So across the 407, again, see a lot of build in this area here. This is still yet to be done. Like, it's part of the moraine and stuff like that. You can't build a lot of it. You'll see a lot of pressure on that.
Oh, right.
Another location.
I mean, it's certainly every major cross section or where major arteries cross, or where kind of hubs or centers are going to be that either people want to live. They can, there's some walking score of some sort within that kind of mini city, and then kind of on the west and south end as well, which is very refreshing to see, because now you've kind of spread out a little bit. You still have every kind of artery and zone has their flavor, and then you just don't have to have that kind of funnel effect of everybody getting downtown every day anymore. Yeah.
And it's part. Listen, we transact across, because we're not landlord based or tenant rep based. We transact across the whole city, and we're really seeing the suburban deals happening versus the downtown deals happening. I have subleases. I have like 3 subleases, and this is my hardest conversation with my clients. So in March and April of last year, my clients said, I want to get rid of my space. Aaron, market my space for sublease. I have not been able to get rid of them. And at first they're like, what's going on? How come you can't do it? And then everyone's getting educated, like, oh, there's no one can get rid of any space. But there is transactions happening up and around in the suburban market versus downtown. So
good to know. Well, thank you for your time. I mean, this has been extremely, extremely informative and helpful, and also I think it'll help us plan for what's really kind of coming up in the future. The office definitely is something that we have to think about in terms of what value it's providing for people, employees, and also to your point, to your comment about it isn't your choice, it's your employer's choice for how they want to conduct these meetings. So thank you, Aaron, for your time. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can continue to talk again and let us know when there's some more insights to share.
Oh, it's great. Calvin, you're great. I really appreciate your insights have always helped me too. And thank you for your time. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Bye.